Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Happy Learning Day, my grade 8 Bangsamoro learners. Welcome to Siyap Ko Kapaganad, which literally means Care for Education. This is brought to us by the Office of MP Attorney Maisara, Dandamun-Latiph, in partnership with the Ministry of Basic, Higher and Technical Education of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. I am your science teacher, Abdulaida Macataman Hadji Cosain of the RPMD National Science High School, City Schools Division of Marawi. Students, are you excited to learn today? So am I. Together, we will explore, discover, and enjoy life studying grade 8 science. Get ready and buckle up for another fun-filled learning episode. What did you observe in the videos? What made those movements possible? Great! Simply by applying force. Force is our topic for this episode. Students, at the end of our discussion, you are all expected to: number 1, identify the properties of forces. Number 2, recognize that a force may cause an object to move, stop moving, or change direction. Number 3, to investigate the relationship between the amount of force applied and the mass of an object to the amount of change in the object's motion. But before we move on with our lesson, let's have a fast drill to test how far you know about forces. I'll be showing you video clips, then you tell me if there's a force applied. Now let's start to watch the first video. Did you answer yes? Good job! You're correct. Now, let's concentrate on the second video. In the second video? Very good! If your answer is yes. This time, you're doing great because you now have 2 correct answers. Now let's proceed to the third video. What about the third video? Do you think there's a force applied? The answer is yes. Force is applied when you lift something. And for our last video, it's kind of hard one, right? Probably some of you would answer no. If that is so, you might need to know more about our topic. But still, the answer for the last video is yes. Force is still present even if there is no motion in an object. Why? You'll find out throughout our discussion. During your grade 7 science, you have learned about displacement, velocity, and acceleration. Now, let's recap The definition of the following terms. Displacement. Displacement is the gap between the initial position and the final position of an object. Velocity. Velocity is the speed at which something moves in one direction. Acceleration. Acceleration is the time rate of change of the velocity of an object. Acceleration is used to describe motion as this takes place with the presence of force. A while ago, I've shown you images and video clips, and we state that in order to do those activities or movements, we need to apply force, and that is correct. Now, the next video will give us an introduction to our definition of force. Let's take as an example of a door which is closed. The door will remain closed unless a force acts on it. If you want to open the door, you have to apply force in any way you want to. You can push or you can also pull. After watching video clips showing example of force, at this point, let's now define what is force. Force is generally defined the push and pull applied to an object. It is also defined as an influence that changes the motion of an object. For a better understanding about force, let's do an experiment. Now consider a ball on the top of a table. The ball will not move when there is no force applied to it. Now if you push the ball, it will roll across the surface of the table. And when it is again pushed in the direction of its motion, it moves faster and farther. But when you push it on the other side instead, opposite to the direction of its motion, the ball may slow down and eventually stop. Now lastly, when you push it in a direction different from its original direction, the motion of the ball also changes its direction. In conclusion, force can make the ball or any object move faster, stop, or change its direction of motion, and force can change the state of a motion of an object.
Forces are described in terms of these properties. Now, let's be familiar with the following terms: magnitude, direction, point of application, and the line of action. Magnitude. Magnitude refers to the size or strength of the force. Now, the magnitude of a force is expressed in a various way. First, Newton. Newton is for the meter kilogram second for MSK system. Second, Dyne is for the centimeter gram second for the CGS system. Third, pounds for foot pound second for the FPS system. And in the international system of units, Newton is commonly used, which is named after Sir Isaac Newton, a famous English physicist and mathematician. Direction points to where the object goes. The direction of the arrowhead also indicates the direction of the force, in which the length of the arrow represents the amount of force relative to its magnitude. point of application is the location of where the force is applied. The line of action is the straight line passing through the point of application and is parallel to the direction of the force. On the other hand, you may be asking right now, does force always affect an object to move? To answer that, let's study this figure. This figure shows how force acts on the ball. The ball will not move unless force is applied to it. The red arrow here represents magnitude, which is the size or the strength of the force, while the violet arrow is the point of direction to where the object goes. This also indicates the direction of force. The length of the arrow represents the amount of force relative to its magnitude. The blue arrow is the point of application, the location where the force is being applied. And the line of action is the straight line passing through the point of application, and it is parallel to the direction of the force. Therefore, force acts on the ball if you push the ball. The ball or any object applied with force can move faster, stop, or change its direction of motion. To conclude, force is an influence that changes the motion of an object. Now that we have already defined and understood force, we will move on to our next topic, the types of force. Now we have two types of forces. Number one is the contact force. Number two is the non-contact force. Now, let's start with the contact forces. These forces wherein an object needs physical contact to another object. Contact forces are responsible for most visible interactions between objects or person. Pushing a car or kicking a ball inside the house are some of the everyday examples where contact forces are at work. Now these are the examples of contact forces. Number 1, applied force. Number 2, the friction force. Number 3, normal force. And number 4, the tension force. Applied force is a force given to a person or an object by another person or object. We are referring to the force exerted by a person or an object towards another person or an object. As you can see on the image, the boy applied a force pushing the cart forward. Now, which of the following picture does not present applied force? You're right! No force is applied in this picture. The second example of contact force is the friction force. It's the force acting against or opposite an object in contact with which makes the movement of the object slow down. Applying brakes to stop a moving vehicle, sliding the slide at the playground are some examples of friction force. Friction force resists the relative motion of solid surfaces sliding against each other. Which of the following pictures does not show friction force? Great job! friction force is not present in a hanging chandelier. Normal force is the third example of contact force. Normal force is the force that acts perpendicular to the surface of an object. Normal force is an everyday force that is felt when the surface pushes against an object that is placed on that surface. For example, when a book is placed on a table, the normal force keeps the book from falling through the table. Students, can you now identify which of the following pictures does not show normal force? Excellent! These pictures does not show normal force. At this time, we have come to the last example of contact force, which is the tension force. This force is the force applied to string, ropes, chain, or cable. Tension force is the force generated when a load is applied at one or more ends of a material in a directional way. Example is stretching a rubber band. Two pulling forces directly opposing each other that stretch an object and try to pull it apart is an example of tension force. Are you still following, students? This time, which of the following pictures does not show tension force? Great job! The picture does not show tension force. Alhamdulillah! Now, we're done discussing with the definition of force and the first type of force, which is the applied force. Ready your pen and paper? This time, try to answer the following questions based on what you have learned and understood in our discussion about force. You will be given a time limit for each question. Are you ready? Let's start. Question number 1. It refers to the size or strength of the force. Letter A, magnitude. Letter B, line of action. Letter C, velocity. Or letter D, direction. The correct answer is magnitude. Question number 2. Which of these forces pulls an object towards the earth? Letter A, friction. Letter B, tension. Letter C, applied. Or letter D, gravitational force. The correct answer is letter D, gravitational force. For question number 3, what force is always directed opposite to the motion of the object? Letter A, tension. Letter B, friction. Letter C, applied. Or letter D, gravitational force. The correct answer is letter B, friction. Let's move on to question number 4. The gap between the initial position and the final position is letter A, acceleration. Letter B, velocity. Or letter C, displacement. The correct answer is letter C. Question number 5. The speed at which something moves in one direction is called letter A, velocity, letter B, displacement, or letter C, acceleration. The correct answer is letters A, velocity. Are you still following, students? Now, this is the question number 6. The time rate of change of the velocity of an object is called letter A, acceleration, letter B, velocity, or letter C, displacement. The correct answer is letter A, acceleration. Question number 7. A force given to a person or object by another person or object is called letter A, applied force, letter B, friction force, letter C, normal force, or letter D, retention force. The correct answer is letter A, applied force. Number 8 question. The location of where the force is applied is letter A, point of application, letter B, the line of action, or letter C, direction. The correct answer is letter A, the point of application. For question number 9, which of the following is a unit of force? Letter A, Newton, letter B, joules, or letter C, watts? The correct answer is letter A, Newton. Now for our last question. Force is an influence that changes the motion of an object. Is it true or false? The correct answer is true. Did you get perfect score? Excellent.
Now let's end our discussion. I hope you learned something from our topic. Again, this is your teacher, Abdulaida, wishing you all good health. See you on our next learning episode.